It's safe to say that I'm on a bit of a side quest to test out every APS-C prime lens from Sigma for the Sony E-mount. So far, I've done 2 out of the 4, the last 2 on my list being the Sigma 16mm F1.4 and this one, the Sigma 23mm F1.4. 23mm on APS-C gives you the very popular 35mm full frame field of view, which is a commonly used focal length for street photography, which is where my focus has actually been whilst testing this lens. So in today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you a real world review of the Sigma 23mm F1.4 DC-DN lens and also tell you why it might just be my new favourite prime lens for Sony APS-C cameras. So let's begin. Firstly, I'd actually like to discuss the price of this lens because it is a bit more expensive than any of their other APS-C prime lenses upon release. This lens was released in early 2023 and costs £449, so it is their most expensive APS-C prime lens currently available. And to justify the rise in price, Sigma did actually release a statement stating the following: "This lens has been designed to achieve the highest level of optical performance in the history of Sigma DC-DN line." That's kind of a bold statement, so does this rise in price equate to higher quality to any of the original DC-DN lenses? Before we talk about the optical quality of this lens, let's talk about the build quality. This lens feels very familiar, and that's because it shares all the same qualities as every other Sigma prime I've owned and tested. Great materials all around and feels great in the hand. This lens does feature a rubber gasket at the mounting point to protect against the elements, which is also included on the 56mm and the 16mm. However, it's not fully weather sealed, but despite that, this lens did experience a bit of a slashing from the rain when I was using it in Oxford and survived. Just about. Honestly, it was fine, although I might have been pushing my luck just a little bit, but I wouldn't actually recommend anybody shooting in those kind of heavy conditions without any sort of weather sealing. But even with weather sealing, it would be better to probably use a plastic rain cover to protect your gear, give you that peace of mind. I'll leave one that I'd recommend in the description below. It's something like $5.99 for like a pack of 3. And if you want to check out any of the gear that I'm mentioning in today's video, that is also linked down below as well. In terms of the weight, it is the second heaviest prime in this lineup, only being lighter than the 16mm F1.4, but still this lens only weighs 340 grams or 0.7 pounds, so still an ultra lightweight prime that feels great on the front of any APS-C camera and allows you to maintain a lightweight and compact setup. All the things we like to hear, really. Now would be a good time to look at the image quality and address the bold claims Sigma have stated about the improved optical performance. In everyday use, the sharpness matches what we've come to expect from Sigma APS-C primes. Tack sharp with plenty of details across the frame, but it's not a massive jump from previous lenses. Is it sharper than its predecessors? Maybe, but in everyday use I couldn't see a significant difference if there even was one to begin with. It's still razor sharp, but I'd say on par with all of Sigma's APS-C primes. And as a bit of a side note, I think this actually speaks in dividends to where we currently are with optical performance and optical quality from any major lens manufacturer. These days you really can't go wrong with any lens. They are sharp and produce a brilliant image. So whilst I can't see any improvements with overall sharpness, which isn't a bad thing. I mean, how much sharper can you make sharp? I mean, how much more sharper do you want sharp? There seems to have been some improvements with other areas with the optical performance from this lens. For starters, the chromatic aberration from this lens is very slight. To notice any, you really have to be pixel peeping and in a test environment. In real world use, you're gonna find it hard to notice any. From my time testing it, I didn't notice any out in the field. Flare performance is solid. You'll see a little ghosting when shooting directly into bright light, although I say bright light because I wasn't able to use the sun as of yet for any of these tests, because I don't know if you can hear, it is raining, it is miserable, it is grey outside. It's very typical British weather. It is raining cats and dogs. Still, the flaring is well controlled and not something to worry about. The bokeh on this lens is smooth and creamy, with a beautiful fall off. You might notice some catting in the corners, but it's very subtle and not distracting at all. unlike my first sentence right there. But that caught some of you off guard. It's a great lens to achieve some lovely subject separation, and it's worth noting that because of the f1.4 aperture, this lens would be a solid option for low light shooting. Straight out of camera, you will notice distortion and vignetting, which is perfectly normal and to be expected due to the smaller rear elements on the Sigma primes, but it's nothing that can't be fixed in Lightroom. A few clicks and your image looks perfect. Speaking of Lightroom, all the photographs you are seeing have been edited with my ultimate Lightroom preset pack. In this pack, you will find a grand total of 143 Lightroom presets that are compatible with desktop and mobile also. They are the perfect pack if you want to enhance your shots. So if you like my editing style and would like to replicate it for yourself, there is a link to my presets in the description below. Thank you for indulging my little self-plug. Now let's continue talking about the Sigma 23mm. It really goes without saying that autofocus for photography on this lens is spot on. Fast, accurate and responsive. The three things we want to hear. The same also rings true for video autofocus. During my stress test, I had nothing to complain about. It tracked brilliantly and the focus motors worked silently, like a ninja. So if you're looking at this lens for B-roll or even talking head purposes, then it's a lovely lens to work with. The autofocus is a 10 out of 10. Other than the price, the only other drawback I have found with this lens is the focus breathing when shooting video. It is quite noticeable and fairly large, so if you are going to be doing long focus pulls, you're definitely going to see it. But when you are shooting things like interviews, talking heads, and using it in the way most people will, you're probably never going to be impacted by it. So as well as street photography, this lens would be an ideal choice for landscapes, portraits, and car photography. This 23mm is a fantastic lens for contextualizing a scene. It's not too wide, nor too tight. It allows you to put a subject within the environment and emphasize that moment and enhance the story. It's for those reasons, among others, I've actually stepped away from using a 56mm constantly for street photography and rather taken a step towards using a 35mm lens. And this 23mm is a beautiful lens to work with. Sigma have stayed true to the original concept of their DC-DN line of lenses. This lens shares many identical qualities when it comes to build quality. The only inclusion I would have personally liked to have seen was maybe some more weather sealing, but you have to take that with a grain of salt because I live in the UK where it's constantly raining, but I don't think that is a major deal breaker whatsoever with this lens. Now, addressing the statement Sigma made about the optical performance improvements of this lens, whilst there have been some improvements, I don't think that justifies the rise in price. I stand behind the idea that this lens would have a larger appeal to a larger market if it was priced at £399 rather than £449. I mean, this lens is only £30 less than their ultimate zoom lens, the Sigma A6000, and I guarantee most people will look at those prices and be like, well, I might as well go for a more versatile zoom, and you know what? I don't blame you, I would be in the same boat. In addition, if this lens was priced at £399, it would be in the right price bracket as their other and previous prime lenses. However, for what's currently on the market at this focal point, the Sigma 23mm F1.4 does offer the best of the best in terms of quality in all sectors. And from my extensive use and testing of this lens, I have really enjoyed creating with it. This focal length is amazing for street photography, for car photography, for portrait photography, and it might just be one of the best prime lenses currently available for Sony APS-C cameras. Alright, that's me done. Thanks for watching, and until next time, create, explore, and inspire.